Max Verstappen, according to Nico Rosberg, has an edge at the Red Bull Formula One team because everyone views him as the number one, something that he laments not having at Mercedes. Before Hamilton attempted to hold Rosberg up in the Abu Dhabi finale to grab the title, their time as colleagues were overshadowed by a breakdown in their relationship and 3 collisions in Belgium in 2014, Spain in 2016, and Austria in 2016. Days later, Rosberg announced his retirement when team owner Toto Wolff acknowledged that continuing to have 2 drivers argue at this level was impossible due to the absence of his Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez, who Rosberg compares to Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen now has it easier. Want to know more? Stay tuned because you might be shocked by what more Rosberg has to say about Hamilton and Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg rivalry began in the first season when the United Kingdom joined Mercedes. And although it was mild during their first season together in 2013, it picked up steam when they both pushed for the championship the following year. The Mercedes era of dominance began in 2014, and while producing excellent cars throughout that time was one factor, having 2 fiercely competitive drivers was another. Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg's competitive nature extended beyond competing with other drivers on the grid and into racing against one another. Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg have known one another since they were young, from their karting careers. They were even teammates racing for Mercedes-Benz McLaren in Formula A. But the conflict began when Lewis was barely 13 years old. In 2015, when he appeared on the Jonathan Ross Show, he said that there is undoubtedly a natural rift with Nico. Since he went to race in Italy, they've been friends. He added, "I got signed when I was 13. When I got there, he was the golden child because his dad was an F1 world champion. So he arrived in a helicopter and had all the best of everything. He led the whole race, and that's where our relationship started. So now you can imagine, we're in Formula One now, and he more than ever wants to set the record straight. But I think there is only room for one number one." The rivalry between the two frequently deviated from the intended course, and Rosberg and Hamilton frequently disparaged one another in interviews and press conferences. Although in their second race together, Mercedes did use team orders to keep Rosberg behind Hamilton. The rivalry between the two produced an odd vibe inside the Mercedes camp for the most part. While not favoring one drive over the other helped avoid confrontation, it did destroy friendships. Since Mercedes entered the sport and team principal Toto Wolff was an investor, Rosberg has been a part of it. He made friends while racing with Michael Schumacher, but the garage had to maintain him partially to prevent any disputes. Those connections vanished after Hamilton joined. Meeting Hamilton was a monumental feat, and the pressure of not having his team behind him combined with his growing interest in Ecotech over Formula One. This contributed to his decision to leave the sport. 6 years after being teammates, Rosberg talked about the powerhouse that Mercedes has evolved into in an interview where he said, "Hamilton? He's still one of the strongest." After 6 years, one may assume that the relationship between Lewis and Nico was stronger. Perhaps the two had even grown close, although that didn't seem to be the case. Rosberg was open when he admitted he still keeps in touch with his former Mercedes boss, but not with any other members of his victorious squad. "I see Toto Wolff every now and then. I hear him on the phone. I should say I don't have any real friends. That's because the most important part of the career has been an unusual situation with the whole team having to keep a neutral attitude between Lewis and I. It was a strange environment knowing that the main rivalry was inside the garage. But there was a team spirit without overreacting, and so it became difficult to approach. It must be easier for Verstappen, who is considered by all to be number one on the team, I guess. Because of that, there's a lighter mood at Red Bull," ventured Rosberg. Rosberg has a point. Verstappen is unquestionably Red Bull's top driver. While the team may highlight Perez's victories in races, Verstappen actually manages that garage. Having the entire staff behind you, encouraging you, and being positive around you will be a major help mentally. Therefore, he must make a significant difference. Rosberg never had the opportunity while working for Mercedes because his major opponent was on the other side of the garage. Because a team would have eaten itself alive, Toto Wolff could never have allowed the two to compete as rivals on different teams. With a squad like that behind him, Rosberg must feel tremendously envious of the Stampin', and will be wondering how much more he could have accomplished. Even though he wishes he had what Verstappen has, Rosberg acknowledged that Verstappen would already be considered one of the top 5 greatest drivers of all time at just 25 years old. According to Rosberg, Verstappen no longer makes mistakes and has the same fighting mindset as Michael Schumacher and Ayrton Senna. He also clarified that no teammate, including Pierre Gasly and Sergio Perez, who are not exactly poor drivers, has been able to keep up with him. Verstappen has totally blown him away. although it is debatable whether Daniel Ricciardo was able to defeat him. That happened at a very early point in his career. Once in a season where Max Drivall competes for Red Bull's B team twice a year and once in the third season in the sport. We don't believe Sergio Perez or Pierre Gasly can compete against Daniel Ricciardo at his peak. But Nico's argument is simple to understand, and he didn't only defeat Sergio Perez and Pierre Gasly, they gave them the appearance of Formula 4 drivers. Nico continued by elaborating on your tremendous regard for Max by saying he had a bad start to the season and Ferrari was superior all the time. He then went on to have a historic season with a total of 15 victories, with relatively few pole positions, often winning by moving forward. He will always be among the best 5 drivers. Certainly, he has won 2 world titles at the age of 25 and has already won more races than Fernando Alonso. He has enormous talent and is now complete. Verstappen has achieved several successes in various ways, with victories coming from 7 different grid positions, with a memorable triumph coming from 14th at the Belgian Grand Prix. Ferrari exerted significant pressure on Red Bull, especially in the early half of the season, with Leclerc finishing the year with 9 pole positions to Verstappen's 7. Verstappen, who barely put a foot wrong all season, took advantage of the Italian team's mechanical problems, tactical errors, and driver errors on race day. Also, Nico has actually been singing praises of one of Lewis Hamilton's rivals, George Russell, the British driver who switched to Mercedes to replace Valtteri Bottas. He had a fantastic debut season away from Williams. The feat George Russell accomplished in the first season as a Mercedes driver was amazing. He defeated Lewis Hamilton and went from Mr. Saturday to Mr. Sunday as he put together a run of 9 top 5 finishes. Clearly more at ease with the bouncing car than Hamilton, despite the Brackley squad's troubles with their proposing W13. The 7-time world champion recovered his footing and had a run of form as the season went on. Some could argue that he was unlucky not to have won the American or Mexican races, and Red Bull team owner Christian Horner thought he could have defeated Max Verstappen if Mercedes hadn't been so cautious in their approach. But in the end, Russell drove Hamilton home for a 1-2 finish at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, giving Mercedes its first and only victory of the season. Lewis is still at his very best, so to beat Lewis is just an unbelievable achievement, Rosberg said. We all know Lewis had a bit of unlucky, scruffy season where the car was not going well and they were experimenting a lot. So that kind of mixes things up a little bit. But that doesn't take anything away from George, who did an incredibly good job. While Nico praises Russell for his performance this year, he believes that if Mercedes is back in the lead the following year, the game may be completely different. The option of whether to allow the 2 drivers to compete or to favor one of them might be the season's most interesting development if they're competing for race victories or a well-regarded Mercedes title. It'll be a different situation with a better car as a platform if they start out at the front competing for podiums and victories from the get-go and being far from the rest of the field. This way, they won't be completely lost and forced to experiment with every setup. The ultimate task is for George to demonstrate his ability to stay ahead of Lewis once more. What do you think about Nico's remarks regarding his time at Mercedes then? Following year, could George Russell experience the same issue? Share your opinions with us in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell icon for more updates. Thanks for watching.